The chief executive grilled over ICAC controversy. LegCo election candidates need to pledge allegiance to the SAR.
As we leave the European Union, we will forge a bold, new, positive role for ourselves in the world. And we will make Britain a country that works not for a privileged few, but for every one of us.
And Theresa May forms a new government in Britain.
Good evening. Chief Executive Len Cheng-ying was grilled by lawmakers today over the ICAC appointment controversy in his question and answer session in the Legislative Council. He insisted he has not interfered with the work of the anti-graft body. As Adam Hsu reports, the focus was also on the upcoming LegCo and CE elections.
Protesters scuffled with the police outside the LegCo building ahead of Len Cheng-ying's arrival. Pan-Democratic lawmakers, meantime, accused the chief executive of undermining academic freedom and the reputation of the ICAC. In his opening remarks, the CE followed up on Development Chief Paul Chan's comments yesterday, saying the government wants to criminally prosecute those responsible for subdivided units in industrial buildings in response to public concern about fire safety at these structures. But Pan-Democrats were more interested in a corruption probe related to him over a payment by UGL and a saga involving the termination of the acting appointment of top ICAC investigator Rebecca Lee as head of operations.
It is impossible for the chief executive to interfere with the work of the ICAC. Whenever there is a complaint, the ICAC, the complainant, and also the person being complained about cannot comment on it.
Lawmaker Kwok Ka-ki was not happy with Leung's response on the issue and left the meeting.
None of his reply is to our satisfaction. For my years in LegCo, 8 years, I never attempted to break the rules of the Legislative Council's proceeding. I walk out as a protest to this very dishonest man, C.Y. Leung.
The pro-government camp pressed Leung mainly on livelihood issues such as labor and elderly welfare. And as the September LegCo election draws near, some of them also worry that their ties to the leader might turn voters away.
If the pro-establishment camp members are being asked by the voters as to whether we support the re-election of C.Y. Leung as the CE, what should we say in answer so as to boost our chance of getting re-elected?
The chief executive did not say directly if he will seek re-election, but insisted people should look at what his government has done in the past 4 years.
If I were a LegCo election candidate, I would say that for this term of the government, it managed to do this and it's done right in doing certain things. But then on retirement, on working hours, on offsetting arrangement on the MPF, this has not yet been done, then we could criticize the government for that.
Adam Hsu, TVB News.
All LegCo election candidates will be required to declare that they will uphold the basic law and pledge allegiance to the SAR. As Evelina Leung reports, this relates to calls for Hong Kong independence.
The 2016 Legislative Council election is just 2 months away. The nomination period for the election begins on Saturday. The government pointed out today the council exercises its powers and functions under Article 73 of the Basic Law. According to the Legislative Council ordinance, anyone who wants to be nominated as a LegCo election candidate has to declare in the nomination form that he or she will uphold the Basic Law and pledge allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR. They should also take into consideration that Hong Kong is an inalienable part of the People's Republic of China. The SAR is a local administrative region of the country, and no amendment of the Basic Law can contravene Beijing's established basic policies on Hong Kong. The government pointed out advocating and promoting Hong Kong independence is in contradiction to the requirements of upholding the Basic Law and pledging allegiance to the SAR. There is mixed reaction towards today's announcement. Starra Lee of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong said the move by the government is reasonable. She added that prospective lawmakers should be aware that they could be breaking the law if they push for Hong Kong independence after taking office. But pan-democratic lawmaker Alan Leung disagrees.
It has no legal right to require any candidate to sign such a confirmation. If one breaches so-called the Basic Law, or one can be alleged by those in power to be not acting in accordance with the Basic Law, that itself is not a criminally prosecutable offense. You need to bring that act within our criminal codes, one or the other, before you can prosecute him.
Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Overseas now, and Theresa May wasted little time as the new Prime Minister of Britain, naming her new cabinet almost immediately after assuming power. She appointed several leading Brexit supporters to key positions, including former London Mayor Boris Johnson to Foreign Secretary. Alan Booknia reports.
The swiftness of British politics was on display in London yesterday. Less than a half-minute after David Cameron left Buckingham Palace, having offered his resignation to Queen Elizabeth, Theresa May arrived with her entourage. Inside, she accepted the Queen's invitation to govern. Then it was off to work at 10 Downing Street. Although she campaigned to remain, she's reiterated Brexit means Brexit.
As we leave the European Union, we will forge a bold new positive role for ourselves in the world. And we will make Britain a country that works not for a privileged few, but for every one of us.
Former Finance Secretary Philip Hammond was appointed Chancellor of the Exchequer, taking over the Finance Ministry from George Osborne. Hammond sought to reassure the markets by declaring Britain is open for business. Despite Britain's precarious financial situation, particularly in light of the Brexit vote, Hammond ruled out an emergency budget.
We'll look carefully over the summer at the situation. I'm seeing the Governor of the Bank of England this morning, and we'll take stock of where we are.
David Davis, a leading Brexit campaigner, was appointed to lead Britain's withdrawal talks with the EU. Michael Fallon retained his position as Defense Secretary, while Liam Fox was named Secretary of State for International Trade, and Amber Rudd assumed Theresa May's old job of Home Secretary. The day's biggest surprise was the appointment of former London Mayor Boris Johnson to the position of Foreign Secretary. His fierce campaigning for a Brexit rankled many international leaders and sparked U.S. President Barack Obama to say a vote to leave the EU would put Britain at the back of the queue.
As I say, the United States of America will be in the front of the queue.
Washington says it remains committed to working with whoever is British Foreign Secretary. May is now under pressure from EU leaders to serve formal notice of Britain's withdrawal and set the clock ticking on a 2-year countdown for its final departure. In phone calls to several EU leaders, May told them she needs time. Alan Booknia, TVB News.
The United States has launched a round of quiet diplomacy to urge countries and regions in the South China Sea to exercise restraint after a ruling by the International Tribunal in The Hague. On Tuesday, the tribunal ruled China has no legitimate claims to territory in the region, a decision Beijing flatly rejects. James Aiken reports.
The 5-judge panel dismissed China's 9-dash line, a decades-old claim to roughly 85% of the South China Sea. The tribunal ruled the line and any claims under it are unlawful under the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The decision sets a legal precedent by determining that UN rules take precedence over China's historic claims.
The Philippines strongly affirms its respect for this milestone decision as an important contribution to ongoing efforts in addressing disputes in the South China Sea.
A former court justice cautions, however, that the ruling is more of a starting point.
The purpose of an arbitral settlement, or it's not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. That is the peaceful resolution of a conflict.
Still, some experts worry Manila's legal victory over territorial claims in the region could embolden others to file lawsuits if Beijing refuses to compromise on access to the resource-rich region. Security analysts say there are several avenues for litigation that can be pursued rather than risk any action at sea that would worsen military tensions. Washington is calling for calm among regional players.
We want to protect the billions of dollars of commerce that flows through the South China Sea. And we want to make sure that those competing claims don't devolve into some sort of military confrontation.
With tensions in one of the world's most disputed regions running high again, state-run television flashed pictures of Chinese passenger planes landing at 2 new airports on reefs controlled by Beijing. Meanwhile, a former Hong Kong justice chief echoed Beijing's stance against the arbitration case. Elsie Long of the Basic Law Committee said the disputed territory undisputedly belongs to China and called the tribunal ruling irrational. James Aiken, TVB News.
South Korea's president says the deployment of a U.S.-made advanced missile defense system in the countryside will not have any negative effects on local residents. The remarks from Park Geun-hye follow a fierce backlash from residents of the southeastern county of Seongju. It's been selected as the site to station the terminal high-altitude area defense system. Park said the decision to deploy the system came from the urgency of stepping up the country's missile defense capability to counter threats from North Korea. The plan has prompted threats of retaliation from Pyongyang and angered Beijing. Washington and Seoul insist the system will only be used in defense against the North's nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities.
And still to come in our newscast, a consumer council warning about body wash products. 4 arrested by police for alleged deception. And struggling to mend ties between police and residents following deadly U.S. shootings.